All right, check-ins. Um, I just got 1% nervous. I don't know why, but now it went away. And I feel playful. I feel like I want to giggle and sort of like wrestle in a gentle way. Um, so welcome to the Stoa. You heard the spiel before, but I'll say it again. I'm the steward of the Stoa, Peter Lindbergh, and the Stoa is a place for us to cohere and dialogue about what matters most at the knife's edge of this moment. And today it seems like we're going to have a lighter crew with us. I think a little bit over 10 RSVP'd. We didn't do rigorous advertising for this because this is an experiment. And my friend Travis Mann, who's been helping out with the Stoa project, is going to do an experiment called Breaking the Frame. And so I'm just going to hand the keys over to Travis, and he'll kind of maybe introduce himself and introduce what we're headed into for this session. So Travis.
Thanks, Peter. So speaking of wrestling, that's a great way to frame what we're going to do today. So I really think that right now, especially, there's really never been a better time for us to kind of re-examine the views that we have on the world and kind of the framings and the positions that we've staked out. And maybe, as more philosophically minded people, we've spent years kind of rolling over these conceptions in our head, tying our own Gordian knot up of ways that we justify the way that we view the world. And really, this pandemic has been it's been wild for showing us the things that we've taken for granted, the things that we thought would always be there, the ways that we thought the world were. Those have kind of proven out to be, in a lot of cases, more mutable than we thought that they were. So I know Peter loves to say this, but we're swimming in the liminal right now. And when we're doing that, this is a time for us to explore, like, what views do I have that maybe I haven't examined in a long time, right? So today we're going to focus on our capacity for adaptability, cognitive adaptability, cognitive flexibility, in a very practical and a personal way. So really, one of the things I've kind of found as I've gone along on my own journey is that I'm oftentimes better off honing my skills of like cognitive flexibility than I am looking for a fixed set of rules or a fixed worldview that I'm going to use to govern every single interaction that I have or every action that I take. I like to think about the Bruce Lee quote about water. He says, "You must be shapeless, formless like water. When you pour water in a cup, it becomes the cup. When you pour water in a bottle, it becomes the bottle. When you pour water in a teapot, it becomes the teapot. Water can drip and it can crash. Become like water, my friend." So we're going to really look at today, examine some of the areas of our mind and our conceptions of the world that have become rigid and not much like water. And then we're going to explore kind of alternative ways of doing, of relating to those viewpoints. Okay. So, and the goal is just to flex our minds, flex our cognitive flexibility, and kind of exercise that, not to look at a worldview and say, oh, that's wrong because of this and that, or that's right because of this and that, but just, if I thought about the world in this way, then what would it be like? Or if I thought about it in that way, so on and so forth. So we're going to be working together in groups of two, to really explore some of these views. So in one of the first exercises, we're going to do two things. We're going to identify one of our more hardline or fixed views that we have about the world. And then with our partner, we're going to explore alternative viewpoints. So the example that I like to give for this is, for example, around the COVID-19 pandemic. So some of us might say, everyone needs to shelter in place. We have to shut everything down in order to stop the spread of COVID. And then an alternative viewpoint might be something like, we need to open up because the economy, can't sustain levels of sheltering in place for such a long time, right? Those are both views that are relatively tenable. They could be defended against argumentation, and they point to certain values, right? Certain values that are behind those statements. And so then we're going to do an evaluation. And by evaluation, I'm not talking about is this view correct or is it incorrect? I'm talking about what is the value that or the motivation that is at the core of that view. Then after we do that, we're going to come up with like a wild alternative, one that is completely implausible and is easily, reduced to absurdity. But that might be fun to kind of explore. Like, what would somebody who had this worldview actually? How would they approach this situation that I brought up? Okay, so these exercises might be personal in nature, so that they're kind of intended to get underneath some of the stuff that some of our deeply held, maybe our sacred viewpoints, right? So we want to be really gentle with ourselves and with our partners. So if you would all just join me kind of in preparing for this, if you would just close your eyes for a moment, I'm just going to drop in a few considerations that we might want to make. So when we're engaging with each other, let's try to incline the mind towards offering the benefit of the doubt that the person that we're with is here and participating because they're open to exploring alternative points of view, and we're going to support them in this. And then, as much as we're able, we're going to try to make it impersonal. We're going to focus on the content of the view and not on judgments about ourselves or the person who holds the view. And alternatively, in supporting our partners and helping them to break the frame, if we find that we strongly agree with the person or the stated view, then let's try not to be complacent when we're helping them to identify tenable alternatives to that. So you can open your eyes. So just holding those intentions as we go into the breakout rooms, and we're gonna jump right in. We have Martin with us now, so I'll give another explanation of what's going to happen in the breakout rooms for Martin's benefit. So in the breakout rooms, we're going to have 10 minutes, and it's going to start with one partner, and they're going to present one of their deeply held, maybe a hard line, a well thought out view, one that maybe hasn't been examined in a long time. It's something that they've held for a long time. It doesn't have to be, but I'm just throwing out suggestions that hopefully are sparking in your mind ideas for what you might be offering to your partner. Okay. They're going to offer that up in a few sentences. And the example, Martin, that I gave was around like COVID-19. For example, everyone needs to shelter in place, and we need to shut everything down in order to stop the spread of the virus. That is a view that is an example of what I'm kind of looking for here. And then the partner is going to take that, they're going to digest it, and they're going to offer up an alternative viewpoint, maybe a popular viewpoint or one that the next most popular viewpoint that has been espoused by people. So try not to choose anything that's too kind of esoteric about the world. This should be something that is kind of it's relevant to all of us as human beings. So then we're going to switch. So then the other person is going to offer their view, and then this person and the other partner is going to offer the alternative. So you're going to want to keep track of these because we're going to use them in the next exercise. We're going to come back after this, and we're going to kind of talk about what that experience was like. So I'm going to create the breakout rooms now. So we have 8 participants. So we're going to break it into 4 rooms so that there's 2. Okay. And they're going to close after 10 minutes. Are there any questions before we start? You should be able to unmute yourself. Okay. There's no questions. We're going to dive right in. I'm going to send you the invites now. I'm jumping in on this one being a creeper because there's an odd number. Why can't I hear you?
Okay.
You watch this.
We'll just have the weird relationship where he's like, yeah, creep.
I couldn't hear you guys.
What are they saying? We're just talking about your nipples right now, man. You know how we want to like.
Yeah.
I want to take the right one. Tyson wants to take the left one. We're gonna do fun things with it. that's my frame. I don't want to be broken. Okay. So here's my position,
Okay.
Tyson.
Yeah.
I think love stories need to be reinvented.
Mm.
Do I need to explain why?
Yeah. Why do you believe that?
Because I think the current love stories about like notebook type shit. There's this kind of like a addictive romance. I think that's game A. I think those type of stories prop up a game A reality. And in order for us to play a new game collectively, I think we need to reinvent the love story. This is hard mode. Advanced apologies.
No, that's good.
This is all I have, though.
Travis, did you hear that?
I did. Yeah.
Okay, good.
I got my headset fixed, so that's good.
And so just clear, so Tyson has to just sort of give like a counter to that, like an alternative.
Alternative viewpoint. Yep.
Cool. Alternative viewpoint. So we have the Bible, Peter, and it has all of the love stories, and it describes in detail how relationship should be between a man and a woman, and that's adequate for me.
I was going to do beta. Can I break that for you?
Yeah.
Yeah, we'll go back and forth. So, well, I feel that there's some truth to that, but we live in a world with multiple traditions and multiple possibilities, and that could be just one of many.
And what is important about a story? Like, why can't you just follow your heart?
That's a good question. So Travis, I have a desire to just like drop into conversation right now. I don't.
Yeah.
Like
That's fine. Just know that like in the next thing, we're gonna be doing like the evaluation portion, right? So this could be expanding more on the viewpoints, like if there's time to do so.
Yeah.
So uh, maybe saving any like basically offering Tyson whatever he's going to need to try to ascribe some motivation to your viewpoint, right? And we're going to see how that feels like to be interpreted in that way and not be the person who's kind of defending our own viewpoints, and explore that. You can talk, I mean, you can do really whatever you feel, but just knowing that that's kind of the thing that's coming up.
I'm going to defend Peter's view.
You're going to exactly kind of evaluate, like, this is the core value behind that, right?
Right.
Love is
Okay.
important, and so on and so forth. Like, that's the kind of thing that's driving that view, right?
Okay. So, can I answer Tyson's question right now? I thought that was pretty good. Yeah. So you're, why can't you just follow your heart? So what's coming up with that is sort of like the heart comes online, and then it's almost like in order to justify its own existence, it attaches itself to a story that allows it to exist, or allows that feeling to exist. And if there's a current, like, you only got one option, one love story option, and it attaches itself to that story and it runs with it. And even though it creates it recreates the emotional state, but it directs it in a certain way. So this is why I think it should be good to have optionality of what love story you want to run with, and maybe one that will lead to a different world than the one that leads to the same world.
Is there a love story that's been most inspiring to you?
Ooh, this is after party conversations, my friends.
I mean, I can also just save that as an open question, but
Yeah,
I'm
you
curious.
gotta present your view now, Tyson.
Okay.
Jeez. Okay. I feel similar, Peter. Like, I feel like I've been emptied of most of my beliefs lately. I mean, one is that most people that are shouting at others to like stay inside are doing it because they want others to suffer equally to them. It's like crabs in the bucket type thing.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
More than it's like their moral, like true like moral feeling about like what is good in the world and what needs to be done. It's more of actually like, no, it's like, if I can't go to the mall, neither can you. Like, if I can't play with if like, yeah, it's that is something that I've been like feeling into, and sort of and it like brings me this sort of like frustration when I think it.
Right. And like, I just want to call it, I have a desire to agree with you more than find an alternative frame right now. But in order to sort of propose a different perspective, is that right now there's a deep seated fear in everyone's heart at the moment, and they deeply want the best for themselves and their loved ones. And they're earnestly trying to find the correct narrative that will provide them protection and security. And so they want to be proselytizers to that narrative. And so deep down, it's coming out of love if you kind of swim beyond the fear.
Love this. Love it.
What you got, boy?
I think that there's like a power in patheticness, or like in that is also maybe like the victim mentality. There's like a power in like being a victim, and so because maybe it enables someone to like fall on habits, or not be in their power, take control, and so they might be choosing. I'm searching a little bit here, but they might be choosing um, to be in that space of fear. Like, it might be easier in a way. It might be more comfortable to be afraid than to be free to do what they want. Like, it might be more comfortable to have someone make decisions for me than to have to make them myself.
Right. again, I have a desire to agree with you more than find an alternative frame. Um, but in order to kind of tease one out, is that it's hard to make a choice when you feel like you have no choice. So to be charitable to these people who seem like they're taking the easy way out, it actually feels like the hard way for them because there's only one way to go. Because they're not taking this workshop.
You guys did great. I love that.
All right, good. Thank you.
Awesome.
Thank you, Tyson, for being my
Thank
sparring
you
partner.
both for letting me
Thank
creep.
you, Peter.
Thanks for letting me creep.
So, if I had anybody creeping, it's my preference is you, my friend.
Thank you. All right, I think we got everybody back. So just want to do a quick 5-minute group discussion. So how did it feel to have somebody, to bear witness to somebody stating their views? And how did it feel to state your views to somebody, especially possibly a stranger, somebody that you don't know? Anybody can unmute themselves and just share what was that experience like?
I noticed this like uncomfortability and being perceived as uncertain, like me surfacing like a belief, and then in that kind of realizing that like I'm not as sure about the world as maybe I on just like I don't know, on a daily ongoing level I might imagine myself to be. But then in this exercise I'm like faced with maybe how few things I'm just incredibly like certain and convicted by. And that was like something about that was a little uncomfortable.
Beautiful. Pam, did you have something? I noticed you unmuted yourself.
Oh, yeah, I unmuted myself and I'm trying to make my phone quiet, so sorry about that.
Oh, that's fine. Thank you.
So what I noticed was initially I had kind of a hard time identifying a rigid belief that I had. And so then when I began to speak, it was not real clear, and so I felt a little exposed for not being clear and concise. But I felt really very well received and really did have an experience that hit home with what that other perspective was, and I was really grateful to hear that.
Excellent. How about anybody, how did it feel to hear somebody, to bear witness to someone sharing their view?
It was interesting listening to Tyson kind of articulate his position, and then just trying to find just that little like kind of spot that I could kind of like double click on and just find like a wormhole to find a new reality. So I found that I had to just really listen to what he was saying, and I felt he was doing the same with me.
That's great. What about, how did it feel to hear the alternative viewpoint? I know Pam already shared, but anybody else, like for something that you kind of had this deeply held or, kind of a fixed viewpoint, did you find that you automatically reaffirmed in your mind, no, this is the right thing, or did it make you reconsider, or did it really not affect you very much? Any reflections on that?
In my group, we both kind of had a similar view that we were uh, feeling very strongly, and it had to do with the value of resources and economics, and dare I say, capitalism. And so it was kind of hard. I found myself trying to kind of like propose alternative views, and I have like tried thinking of that kind of stuff for the last year or so, like, okay, what are the positive sides of like capitalism and all that. So we were able to have a discussion about that, but I wonder if I was able to really push myself far in considering alternative views. I'm not exactly sure. I think probably because we were both aligned in terms of values, it was harder
Yep.
as well.
Yeah. I mean, I think that what we're hearing here is really speaks to kind of the perils of the echo chamber, right? That when we don't confront ourselves with alternative viewpoints, we can really start to reinforce those, because this is what we do in our own head. I mean, when we think about our own problem solving methodology, right? We take a problem, we develop a hypothesis about that problem, and then, based on our cognitive biases, we go out and try to seek things that confirm that hypothesis, right? That's kind of a well-documented cognitive bias. And so we see, like, when we get mashed up with somebody, it's almost hard even to come up with alternative viewpoints sometimes to the things that we've done. So I think that this next exercise is going to help us a little bit with that. So in this one, we're going to do what I call the evaluation. And, I know what that probably brings to mind to people. We're evaluating whether or not a view is correct or incorrect. And I want to break the frame around that, and encourage us to seek out what are the core motivating factors that are kind of driving this view. And we're going to do that we're going to do it for the view that was originally proposed and the alternative view, but we're going to swap who's doing it. Okay. So the person who originally proposed a view, they're going to evaluate the alternative view. And then the person who proposed the alternative is going to evaluate the original view. So we want to really this is where some of the benefit of the doubt comes in, right? Like, what would a well-reasoned, benevolent person, what would be their motivating factor behind this view, even if it's like a repugnant one, right? So the example that I have is in the COVID-19 example. People who are saying that we should just stay home and that everybody needs to shelter in place, those people are placing a high value on human health and well-being. To them, other things pale in comparison to the health and well-being of humans, right? And the people who are advocating opening up, they're really valuing society and the ways that societies enable human beings to really take care of themselves. I mean, to get resources and things of that nature. We've seen things in the news about the food supply chain and the risks to that, those sorts of things. So those people are probably placing society at the highest position, right? That'll enable the most people to be safe and well. So that's kind of an example of what the evaluation would look like, is getting to that core value. So let me just check my notes. So yeah, just remembering to swap the partners. So if you propose the original view, your job is to evaluate the alternative view. And I'm going to throw us all back into the breakout rooms. Are there any questions before we go? Okay, you might have to remind your partner of what your viewpoint was, but let's just help each other out. Okay.
25.
Creeping
Yeah.
in.
Hello.
Hello, can you hear that?
Yeah. We were just talking about your nipples again, but we'll stop.
I didn't hear you say that the first time, so now I know
Oh
what you're
shit.
saying.
Okay. Okay, there you go. So so if I understand, Tyson, the idea here is I'm going to argue on behalf of your view of the kind of the Bible and stuff, and then we're gonna flip roles, and you're going to argue on behalf of my view of love being reinvented. So if I remember correctly, you said that why does a love story need to be reinvented? Because we have all this wisdom stored in all our culture about how love should be. And I think that's potentially, let me speak truthfully. I'm not going to speak like a car salesman. So the truth claim in there that I sense into is that it's like the Lindy effect that Nassim Taleb, like if it's old, right? If it works, don't try to fix it type thing. And so there could be an argument. There's like the Peterson argument. It's like, yeah, you know, the wisdom tradition, especially Judeo-Christianity, it works to an extent because it kept civilization going for this long. So why try to radically fix it? So when I kind of sink into that thought, it makes me think not to throw the baby out with the bathwater so quickly, and kind of think about what can be maybe redeemed or repurposed out of the old love story, and not necessarily reinvent a new one from scratch. So yeah, you just persuaded me, or I persuaded myself via your argument.
Interesting.
Love that.
And
Okay.
and then what happens now? So Tyson argues my okay.
Yeah.
Tyson
Okay,
doing the
great.
same thing, but from Peter's perspective, with his view.
Yeah. Yeah, people right now are generally afraid about about their health and the health of their loved ones, and it makes them feel probably unloved and unrecognized when others carelessly ignore the self-isolation and quarantine and health protocols.
Oh, wait, sorry, I'm going to interrupt you. Sorry.
Yeah.
So right now you are arguing for Peter's point about, you're good, man, you're good. You're arguing for Peter's point that the love story needs to be reinvented, right?
Great.
So trying to get to what is the core view, the core motivation behind that.
Yeah, thank you.
You're welcome, man.
I'm so ready to do that one. Man, we need a new love story up in here.
Yeah.
Like, we've got all kinds of new characters coming online, archetypes, creative fantasy worlds that have just been like shoved down and ignored, and now they are being activated through music and through story and through festivals, and it is so much more inspiring and enlivening and colorful than what we've been given. And we're giving birth to a new type of person, and a new type of person they experience a new type of love. And we need stories to inspire that in children, because that's how kids learn to be a hero, is by immersing themselves in the quest of another hero. And that's how we learn to love, by immersing ourselves in the stories of other people's love. And I learned to love from the way my parents loved each other. But hey, my job now is to upgrade the love that I pass down to the next generation, and so on.
I'm back.
Preach.
I'm back, baby.
That one was way more fun than the other one.
Okay, so now, Peter, you're going to argue that people who are and get to the core of why people who say and scream like you got to be indoors, so on and so forth, why that's coming from like a place of fear and wanting other people to suffer as they're suffering in the situation.
Okay, so I have to talk about I can't remember, like, so people who are, I have to argue for the fear thing.
Yeah, my fundamental belief was that people who are like yelling like
Oh
stay
yeah. Okay.
inside,
Okay.
stay at
Yeah.
home. They're just doing that because it's like the crabs in a bucket metaphor.
Yeah. So, on one level, people have a scarcity mindset, and it's like Nietzsche said, that people don't want to watch someone fly too high because they want to hurt their neck, right? And so when people see someone thinking differently outside the box, kind of challenging certain narratives, they're like, no, 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 you got to stay inside. You got to be afraid, like I am right now, because I don't want to see you live a full life.
Nice. Nice.
Yeah.
Oh man, now Tyson, benevolent people.
Yes.
They're loving, they're caring people.
Yeah.
That's why they're screaming. They're doing it out of a sense of morality.
That's right. And when one of these people looks out the window and they see a group of kids all huddled up in a circle, what they feel is that those kids don't care about them and their health, that they're maybe ignoring the health and well-being of an older generation, and um, and they want those people to just to express more love and care toward their community and the people around them. And so that is why they shout, stay at home, and make these posts and feel these emotions, is really because they just value the health of their community, and it makes them feel sad and angry that others are acting selfishly.
Mm. And what do you think, what do you think their core value is in that? Like, is it people caring about other people? Is that the thing that they think should be driving everyone's behavior, right, in that moment? Like, if they had to make a statement like, you should care about other people's health and well-being,
Mm-hmm.
you think that that's maybe what?
Yep. And it's a respect thing. It's like,
Yeah.
you should show respect to people that have come before you and are more vulnerable than you.
Mm.
And yeah, that's it. You should care. And it's also, I think, just the place of like, I want to feel cared for.
Yeah. Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Shit, you guys knocked it out of the park. We got 2 minutes left. What the hell are we going to do?
Great. I mean, maybe we could. I like this whole love story thing. That's strong. That's the strongest energy for me.
Let's jam about it.
Mm-hmm.
Why is that strong for you, Tyson?
I think, I mean, the whole idea of having to participate in a new myth is strong for me, and the realization that I've been so inspired by stories, but it is now, and what you've been writing about, like movies and books and all this, are becoming less interesting.
Yeah, totally.
Mm-hmm. And so, yeah. And so, but even the way I relate to a story has got to change. It's not something that someone else can spell for me.
Mm-hmm.
But then at the same time, I know what it's like to read a story that like really deeply inspires me. So what is like the balance of the two, where I'm participating in someone else's creation of a story? I don't know.
At the edge of my thinking with the whole love story thing is that, the kind of like the traditional romantic notebook style story, right?
Mm-hmm.
I actually think that's made for men and not for women. And I think that was sort of like women casting a spell on man in order to seduce them to, like loyalty, courtship. And it's that quote I tweeted. It's like a man desires a woman and a woman desires a man's desire. Because, men have traditionally been stronger and then could, just have their way essentially. So they needed to sort of like cast a spell. And I think like the time is to switch the roles. It's time for the men to cast a spell on a love story. And then it's like, I think for myself, like there's this Madonna whore complex that kind of all men sort of had in this culture. Either the woman's a Madonna or the woman's a whore, right? And then, the more and men with discernment can kind of see through that narrative. But I think a lot of guys just sort of naturally resonate with that. And then these love stories kind of make that, promote that myth. But women could be evil, they could be bitches, they could be wild, they could be powerful. And if we want to have a right relationship with the masculine, we have to have a right relationship with the feminine and all of it. And I don't think there's any love stories that exist that appreciate that.
Yeah, like a love story about just like a wild, crazy woman, and like
Yeah,
just
an untamable bitch that you just you just want to like just appreciate.
I make that, and then I brought up music festival, like, or festivals earlier, and I think like part of the appeal of a festival and like Burning Man is to experience the women there in all of their wildness.
Right, right. Yeah. And I wonder if there's any like myths that could kind of hijack the normie mainstream culture, the gay male culture, through those sort of the communities and those experiences. Like Burning Man is not like it's like a taste of communitas, but it's not sort of like the home of communitas.
Man, good stuff. This is the medicine right here.
This is good.
Yeah. Just we have 5 seconds. Show us your nipples, Travis. So we
You know this is recording because I. Welcome back. Okay. So again, we're just going to open it up to some discussion within the group. So how did it feel to have somebody kind of ascribe a motivation or to try to discern a value behind a statement that you made of kind of a deeply held belief? How is that being on the receiving end of somebody, keeping in mind that this is kind of something that anytime that we expose our own beliefs, people tend to do this. They'll ascribe a motivation behind your statement, right? That's enough to make most people want to throw up, to think about the fact that people are constantly, judging our statements like that. But how did it feel in this context?
Can you ask that in a different way, Travis?
I certainly can. So in this one, the instructions were to have the person who originally stated the view, they had to evaluate the alternative view, and the person who stated the alternative view had to evaluate the original view. And what we were trying to lead into with the evaluation term was to look underneath, like what is really motivating that statement of belief or statement of thought. So to hear somebody else do that to a belief that you had presented, how did that feel? Did any reactions in the mind come up? A body?
I'll say what came up for me. So when I was arguing on behalf of Tyson's original kind of position, I didn't want to, so there was like that internal felt sense of resistance. But I found, it's like the yes and improv thing. I just found the point that I could say yes to, and then I just ran with that as far as I could. And then I actually kind of changed my original position. Like, oh yeah, okay, maybe there's some merit here that I can incorporate into the original position that I had.
That's great. Did anybody find that it was like, no, that's not at all what, like, the reasoning behind my statement of belief? No. Wow. Okay, we got a bunch of accurate people here. That's great. Did anybody find that upon examining the values between the two positions, that maybe the values underlying them were more similar than it would have seemed with the initial statement of belief or thought?
Yeah, I found, like, once I was comparing and contrasting both viewpoints, that there was a lot more similarities than differences than I thought. I was sort of like, I was discussing billionaires, and I guess my initial viewpoint was that there should be no billionaires, but then when I sort of countered that point, I could see, I guess, more from like a philanthropy point of view, that they actually could uh, they could play a role in distributing wealth and sort of that touching on the I guess my core value that I was originally against.
Yeah, that's great.
And I can add, and it was the same the first time. It became very clear to me that there's, at a minimum, two levels in me. There's one level that just holds on to that position and is not interested. I mean, it's just like swatting anything away, right? And then there's a whole other level that has been asking, how does that other side work? How are they doing this? What are they valuing?
Yeah, excellent.
What are they swatting away? So
Yep.
I could really feel both, and one feels really different than the other.
Yeah.
One is just entrenched, and the other one's going,
Curious. Yeah, I love it. So something that in doing this exercise before, like kind of just by myself, I've noticed that like I can take one core set of values and come up with wildly different statements of belief just based off of one core value. And that can radically change the way that I act in the world. So along those lines of kind of coming up with a new a value and then seeing what would the statement of belief be that came out of that, let's do something just completely radical, completely wild. So my example that I've been kind of toying with is around the COVID-19. What would a caricature of a hedonist, somebody who values immediate gratification of sense desires, for example, what would their statement of belief around like COVID-19 be, right? I imagine one of them could be like, all of this is ridiculous. The only thing that we need to do is go out and like everybody just go out into the street, have an orgy, for example. If we get COVID-19, we get it, but at least we lived according to our highest value of experiencing this pleasure, this raw, untamed pleasure. So taking whatever kind of topic you originally chose, and then just coming up with maybe an alternative philosophy or a different set of values, and then coming up with a wildly different statement of belief around it. Really just gets stupid. It can be completely indefensible, completely untenable, and just roll with it. So I'm going to give us 8 minutes for this because we don't have to go do as much back and forth. And then we will have time. Actually, I'm going to give us 6 minutes. So this is the lightning round. Come up with something crazy. Okay. See you in the room.
Do you want to go first?
Cool. You went quiet, and then I heard go first.
Yeah. No, I don't have anything crazy at the moment.
Yeah.
Maybe.
The one thing that came up to me, I'm not that excited about like defending, and it was that like love stories or love isn't real. This is an imaginary thing. It's a story that we create about sensations that are really could more accurately be described as like biological impulses.
Mm-hmm.
And so then how that would, sorry, what's that, Travis?
What would they say about like love stories in general then? Like if love is just all construction, what should be done with love stories?
They might say, gosh, I mean, really, if someone is saying this for me, then it's like, what would they value? They might not have like, they might just think that like things are generally meaningless.
Yeah. I would, just to kind of plant a seed. So like one thing I can imagine somebody like that saying is that love stories are delusional and delusion is bad for society and therefore they should be banned. Love stories should be banned. Right?
Right.
Somebody who thinks that love is a completely manufactured thing in the mind, love stories should be banned. That's like an example.
Right. Yeah, it's a distraction. We should just
Yeah.
do arranged marriages from here on out, and then it
There
takes
you
away
go.
all of that, having to try and find a partner and mess that up. It's like, no,
Yeah.
it's just, there'll be a lottery.
Lottery.
Mm.
Fucking wild.
China's probably going to that with all their like dating apps and metrics. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so I pick anything, and then I just got to talk as if someone who believes in that.
Sure, why the hell not?
Okay,
Nothing's
maybe,
stopping
yeah. Yeah. Okay, so I think we all have the potential today to be reality artists, and we can influence reality with story. And if I was someone who believed in that, I would say that who cares necessarily what is true, as long as it's not false and it's beautiful, run with it.
Mm.
I like it.
Yeah, and so this person might describe themselves as a god.
Or maybe someone who's intimately connected with God.
Mm.
I like it. We're going to come back to the group, and I'm going to ask people to kind of share out what wild statements of belief they came up with, and we're going to have love stories should be banned, and I am a god.
I'm just going to talk about your nipples, man. If you put me on the spot.
Yeah. You know this is recorded. I'm going to have to edit out all the nipple parts to
No,
put this
man.
on your page.
I'm giving you free blackmail. I'm the steward of the Stoa. So
Free blackmail, yeah.
Yeah. That's how much I
I
trust
was
you.
sexually harassed by the steward of the Stoa. Talking about my nipples.
I think that's conducive to breaking someone's frame. They're like opening up this educational content, and it's like, why do nipples keep getting brought up?
Exactly. Little do they know, nipples are the key to learning.
Yeah.
Nipples are key to philosophy. Okay, that's another statement of belief right there. Nipples are key to philosophy.
I'm genuinely curious how your nipples look, actually. I was in my mind. It's like, you can't think of the elephant. It's like, I can't stop thinking.
Don't think of the nipples. Don't think of the nipples.
Not today, Satan.
All right, I'll tell him to relax.
I love it. Any other wild, let's do COVID. Like, what's another, like,
Oh yeah, to tag on to Peter's thing. So like, okay, we attracted COVID. Like, we created this reality of a sickness to get us to get our health into check and to treat the earth better. Like, we manifested this reality with our actions.
It's like a law of attraction type stuff.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, cool.
Damn.
Cool. Actually, me and Camille had the same thought where we were playing with that thought when we went for our walk today. Synchronicity.
Wild.
And a bunch of other reasons that maybe we would have created this. Like, we wanted to go back to our homes and not have to go to work.
Yeah.
So we wanted some drama in our lives to make us feel alive again.
Yeah.
That's good, man.
That's great. I love that.
Yeah. I just want to have a beer with you guys right now.
I know. That'd be nice.
I'm going back to my silent meditation.
Yeah. We probably permanently fucked you up for that one. For this.
I'll only think about nipples for the rest of the week. That's a lot of
That'll be your central mantra.
Exactly. Yep.
Yeah. We focus on.
Yep. My kasina.
Mm-hmm.
They have. It's funny. So like in one form of Buddhist meditation, you're supposed to create a disc, like a physical disc that's like red, and it represents like the earth and hardness and everything, and you just sit there and focus on it until you can see it in your head. So this red circle.
I don't want to go there. You're planting these thoughts in my head, my friend. I'm losing sleep, and I'm going to say, why? Why can't you go to bed? Travis.
Okay. See you back in the room.
Right,
See ya.
Bye.
I can't see how much. I can't see how much time is left. Oh boy, ours was really wild. I hope that everybody else was too. Um, does anybody want to share out, like, just in the last couple of minutes, one of the like wild, crazy statements of belief that came up? Like one of the examples in ours was like, all love stories should be banned.
Well, one crazy one, my partner helped me bring this out, was letting people with drug possession convictions out of jail and giving them drugs, giving their drugs back, or giving them drugs
Your
on their way out
drugs.
as a we're sorry, here's your weed back kind of idea.
Oh, great. Yeah, that's good. Anything else crazy come up? Okay. Well, I really hope that this helped everybody flex their muscle for determining worldviews, dissecting them, and kind of reevaluating. Hopefully with the outcome that we don't necessarily hold so tightly to any one worldview, and we're more adaptable and able to assume different ones, and we can use that as a resource going forward. That was really my goal in all of this. So I hope that you found it beneficial, and I hope to see you again. So thank you, everybody.
Cool. Thank you, Travis, for hosting that today, and thank you everyone for coming out. So yeah, let's talk about next events. I'll just talk about maybe 2 coming up. So tomorrow morning at 8 p.m., not 8 p.m., 10 a.m. Eastern time, the gift economy with Andrew Taggart. So Andrew, a good friend of mine, is coming in. He's talking about the gift economy, which is basically this whole project is based off of. And I want him here every week to talk about it, discuss how the gift economy can be repurposed for different types of mediums like the Stoa or other digital campfires. So I'm really, really looking forward to that. And that's going to be a one-off. And then at 6 p.m. that same day, AJ Bond, our good friend, he's going to do another shame breakthrough boot camp. And he's having Brad Blanton. Brad Blanton's coming next week. AJ is going to interview him on Wednesday. So that's going to be dope. I know you're a fan of him, Tyson. All right, everyone. Thanks so much. Be well. Lots of love. Mwah.
Thank you for doing this.
Thank
Bye-bye.
you so much.
All right. Boom, boom, boom.